Max painting, here is what you are going to need. You can either paint on a canvas, which this one is painted on, just regular canvas, or a canvas board, or you can paint on paper, which is what I'm going to paint on today. Okay. So this sheet right here is the size of what my canvas that I normally would paint on would be, and this is a 12 by 12 size paper. You're also going to need a square cut out the size of 8 inches by 8 inches. This will be our tracer to trace around and make the flag part in the middle. And then you're also going to need a sheet of paper cut out 3 by 3 inches, and that's going to be where the blue corner of our flag is. Okay, then you are going to need some acrylic craft paints, some water to clean your brushes and paper towels, and I always keep wet wipes on hand too, a pencil for tracing, and some brushes. You'll need one flat brush. This one's about a 1/2 inch wide, and then I have couple smaller brushes for some of our details and a medium-sized brush. That's what you're going to need to get started. So we're going to take this 8 by 8 piece of paper, this square, and try to find about where the center would be. If you're really picky, you could measure it, but I'm just going to kind of guess, and I'm going to use this as a tracer to lightly trace onto my canvas or paper, whatever you're painting on. If you would rather block off your corners using painter's tape too, you can do that versus cutting out the squares. But this is just easier, and then I have this to use again. Then the next thing I'm going to do is just trace this corner, so I remember not to paint my stripes in there. There we have it. The one thing I did forget is you might want some masking tape to hold your paper down. I just tape this down if you're using paper, so that way it doesn't curl as you are painting. Now Peter Max, he was from Germany, like the introduction video showed. He moved to the United States when he was young, and he used a lot of like the patriotic symbols, like the Statue of Liberty, the flag, were kind of some of his inspirations for his painting. But along with that, he was a pop culture artist, and pop means he used a lot of fun, bright colors. So I have on my paint palette some reds and blues, and I'll for sure want some white to highlight with my details and to lighten up any of my colors. And then I kind of chose for this one more of a neon color palette. And this one I've painted before. I used just a combination of orange, pink, yellow, greens, and blues, and purples in there. So you can decide. You can go back and relook at some of the pictures in the introduction video too if you need ideas of what colors would work well together and what might be fun combinations to use. So we're going to get started. Let's see here. We are going to start, just going to wet my brush just a little bit. And we're going to start by painting blue in our corner. Try and keep my paint palette here so you can see. I'm going to just add a little bit of white to paint in my blue first. And then I'll go back over it. This might be too wide of a brush I'm using. You can use a smaller one. I'm just trying to outline and get it covered here. And then I'm going to add some darker blue over it, and when I kind of mix my colors, it just gives it a little bit more texture. I'm going to use a smaller brush. I'm gonna pick up some of my darker blue. I have two different dark blues there. And for this one, I'm not going for a real smooth look. I'm looking for texture. So my paintbrush strokes, usually I would say keep them all going the same way. I'm kind of going different ways so I can get different textures in there. You see where I have some dark, some lighter. Just gives it a little bit more dimension as I'm painting it. And I think I'm going to add in just a little bit more dark on the top of it. Then I might come back and add, once it dries a bit, I might add a little bit more to it. When paint is wet and I'm keep painting over the top of it, all it's going to do is blend. It doesn't layer as much, but once it's dry and I can go back and paint on top of it, then it adds a layer. I'm going to clean my brush out really well because now I'm going to move on to the white, or excuse me, to the red. So get all the blue. If you're using the same brush, I'm going to use this brush for my stripes. And what we want is 5 red stripes. Now what you could do if you really wanted to is layer painter's tape or masking tape to make your stripes, but I'm not going to do that on this one. I'm going to use a couple different colors of red. I'm going to add just a little bit of white, and then I'll go back over and add some darker red to it. When you're painting, you want to start with your lighter color and add the darker color on top. So I'm going to start right up here, and about the width of my brush is about the width of what I would want one of my stripes to be. I'm going to kind of guess and space it out. So if I went here, that would be about another width. I'll go about right here. To there. Now if I did have painter's tape down, that would just make sure my lines are nice and straight, but I don't necessarily want that look. So about here would be a white stripe. Here would be a red. I'll go back and get those again later. I'm just trying to get down on paper where I want my stripes to be here. So about here would be a white and a red. That's 4 stripes. And my last one would be right on the bottom. So now what I'm going to do is go back over the top of them again and fill my stripes in. You could even have fun by trying to tie in a little bit of orange with it. I think I could dip my corner in a little bit of orange and give it kind of an orangish red tone in some places. Just picking up the darker colors. Now I'm painting darker over it. And then I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and I'll come back and decide if I want to add more to the top of it. Okay. Do you see here where I didn't quite come to my edge? I will want to make sure I do that, and I can come back and fill that in later. Next, what I'm going to do is decide how I want to break up my border. And there's no right or wrong way to do this. I just kind of went from color to color, and my colors changed as I went around. But like I said, this time I wanted to try something with more vibrant, bright neon colors, so I'm going to go ahead and give that a try. Since some of these colors are a little bit lighter, you can always add a little bit of white to your first layer to just help cover up the paper. Sometimes they're a little more transparent or translucent where you can kind of see right through it. I'm going to just go around my edges, carefully, not going over my flag. And then what I'm going to do is pick up another color that's next to it on the color wheel. And when I do that, colors that are close to each other on the color wheel, they blend really nice together. Do you see how you can see through that a little bit? I'm going to pick up a little bit of white in there and continue going around it. And I give my brush a good clean because I have a lot of white on there, too much. I'm going to pick up some of that brighter orange and go over the top of it. You're going to keep working your way around. I know yellow for sure is a pretty transparent color, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of white in that. Coming around close to my edges. Kind of like how that blends there. It gives it a different shade of orange. A trick to when you're going around the edges is if you have a flat paintbrush, hold it sideways, paint down. Always know you can turn your canvas or your paper around. That's kind of why I don't like working on an easel as much. Some people like working on an easel, but I prefer not to, so that way I can turn and move my painting more how I want it to be as I'm working. I can see that my red is a little bit wet yet, so I'm trying not to touch that. If you wanted to speed up your drying process, you can always use a blow dryer to dry this part first before moving on. I'm gonna go a little bit more yellow because I plan to mix my green with it a bit. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of teal green here with my yellow. Kind of makes a fun, more vibrant lime green or green. Now, if you don't have acrylics at home, but you have tempera paints at home, you could always do tempera paint on paper too. Let's see, I think I'm going to do a little bit more of just, let's see, I think the straight teal here without the combination. Let's see what that does. I'll go for a little bit of lighter there too. Pick up a little bit of dark blue in here. That's a really dark blue. I must have touched a little bit of purple in there too. I kind of like that. Sometimes when you just give yourself the freedom to not be a perfectionist as you're working, you kind of allow yourself to come up with some new and interesting things that you might not have normally did on your own. So it's okay to experiment and explore with colors. That's the fun of it. And I think lastly, I'm going to try to connect a little bit of purple to it. I'm gonna do like a purplish pink here. And kind of tie it in that way. kind of worked my way around the rainbow. Now I have every color of the rainbow. I didn't even plan that. So I'm going to let this part dry for a bit, because what I'm going to do in just a moment when it's all dry is go and add some details onto the top of these layers, but I need to make sure that this layer is dry, otherwise all that will happen is my paint will blend into it. I'm gonna go back and put some more pink on the top of this layer right here, I think. See how giving it a second coat just brightened it up there a bit. I think I'm going to do that with my orange too, just to brighten it up a bit. There we go. I think I'm going to let mine dry for a bit, and then I'm going to come back and add some details onto it. Now, as you're waiting for your painting to dry, another thing that you could do is just get a piece of scratch paper and just practice some different patterns that you could do around your borders. You could do wavy lines, kind of the zigzag lines, horizontal and vertical lines. Could go a pattern where I go wavy. Spirals are always fun. Hearts are fun to make. You could do different shapes like triangles or squares. So be thinking about what are some patterns that you could add to your painting around the borders. Okay, now I think mine's pretty dry. So I'm going to start adding to the top of it. First thing I'm going to do is I think I'm going to add just a little bit more darker blue brush strokes to my square here. Filling it in how you want, because I'm going to add a white star to it anyway, so I want that white star to pop. So that's why I'm choosing to add some darker blue in there. Okay. Now these red stripes look pretty flat because it's all the same color kind of blended together. So now what I'm going to do is add maybe a little bit of white to some spots. Just brushing a little bit of white over it. Whoops, that's a lot right there. So I'm gonna pick up some darker red. Mix in some darker reds. See how it helps my flag not look like just the same red color going across? Just gives it a little bit more dimension, that's called. Tying in a little bit of orange. I think I'm going to leave them alone like that. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to let this dry a little bit. I'm going to start adding in some details to my border, and this is where I'm going to probably use some smaller brushes. I'm going to pick up some white here. I think I'll do some white polka dots. Around the edges here. If you want tiny polka dots, the trick to doing that is dipping the end of your paintbrush in the paint and then just touching down and you get little polka dots. And I might use that technique here in just a bit. Okay, I think I will leave that one there. I'm going to use some of this light turquoise blue, I think on top of the purple. And here I'm going to just do like wavy lines. What I could do in there too is add like maybe a yellow polka dot using the back of my paintbrush in between. I'm going to use a really skinny paintbrush now to add in some finer details. I like the yellow on the pink, so I think, let's see here, if I just go some stripes in here. Let's see, I think I'm going to add some yellow on the green here too. Make sure. What I wouldn't want to do is add the yellow on the yellow. Do you see how that starts to blend a little bit? Maybe I could pick up a dark blue in there. I think I like the dark blue. I'll show you a quick trick. If you are using a canvas, and I am using paper, so it should still work, but as long as this layer is dry and this one's wet, if I did something I didn't like, I can just take a wet wipe. And it pretty much came off. Now I will go back over that with my darker blue that I was trying to use. So I think that just popped a little bit more than the yellow did. I might add some dots in between here. Maybe I'll use pink. And I have a bigger brush, so I'll have bigger polka dots in there. Try that one again. You'll keep working your way around, filling in your borders. I'm thinking what color I want to use on the green there. I might go for this other blue here. This one I might try to do some spirals. Work my way down. A bright orange would look really good, or a bright blue or green would look good with the yellow too. I'm going to add in some orange. I think I'm going to use my fatter paintbrush and do a polka, like a big dot again. Add some white in there. Not sure if I love that. Kind of turned purple because my brush wasn't clean. I think maybe I will go with this dark turquoise here. Try that instead. And I have one more little spot to fill, and I could go back and do something in here too. I think I'm gonna go with some more white. You know, one pattern I haven't used yet is little X's too, and I can show you. Fine brush, just go. There we have it. I think I'll just show you what a little zigzag line would look like too here. There we have some zigzags. So we have a good combination of patterns and designs, lots of fun color. Now the last thing to do is to decide if I want to do multiple stars in here, one star. If you have chalk, and I don't have any on me right now, but you can always draw on top of this first with chalk and then paint it in. And if you don't like it, how it looks, the chalk just wipes right off with a wet wipe, but I'm just going to go ahead and give it a try at freehanding. When I make a star, I have my point at the top like a triangle there. My sides come out. And you could always take a picture of a star, like a clip art on the computer, and print one out too. And you could always go ahead and trace that. I'm going to lightly fill mine in because I still like how I can see a little bit of the blue behind it. You can choose if you want to totally fill it in. Now in Peter Max's paintings, some of them he has a hidden heart or a heart inside it too. If you go back and look at the video closely, the introduction video, you will see that some of them have a little heart somewhere, either on a stripe and some are inside that blue part there. Okay, then the last thing I'm going to do, just to add something a little fun here and more details, I'm going to take a real skinny brush, dip it in some white, and I'm going to make little lines that burst out to make it look like that star is beaming or shining. And there you have it. There's your Peter Max painting. Now, you can, all artists sign their paintings, usually in the bottom right-hand corner. You could initial it, you could sign it with your name, or on the back you could put the date too. I like putting the date on it because, like, when my kids were little, it was always kind of fun to try and figure out how old were they when they painted that. So there you have it. Your painting, you can decide if you're hanging it up or if you did it on paper, you could easily frame it too. I hope you all have a fun and safe 4th of July. Enjoy the nice warm weather and the time being with family and friends. I hope you enjoyed this painting.